Hi, and welcome to the Cheer Up Podcast. I am your host, Kara R. Hunt, and with me is the wonderful Sherry Swalwell. How are you doing today, Sherry?
I am doing fantastic. It is a beautiful day. I am loving just loving life and blessed to be alive. How about you?
Absolutely blessed to be alive, blessed to experience summer. And we've talked before on this podcast many times, about the different seasons, winter, summer, spring, fall, and how they can compare to our, our spiritual life as well. And summer is just definitely one of those months that I love it. I don't mind heat. Well, let me put it this way. If I have air conditioning, I don't mind heat. And everything else is just more the humidity. And where I'm at in the Midwest, Sherry, the humidity can get pretty bad. Not as bad as down south from what I hear, but how are the humidity levels for you guys?
Well, let's just say my hair loves it, my body not so much.
Right? Oh, I'm laughing. For those of you who do not know, Sherry has lots and lots of long, curly locks. Okay, and as we all know, for those of us with curly hair, humidity loves it. Okay, hair loves it, and humidity just attacks it, and it just really, really just make those curls even tighter. At least in my case, your curls get tighter, right, Sherry?
Yep.
They get really get a lot tighter, and you're like, what in the world? And your hair is like, I'm loving this, and everything else. So, but just like every other season, summer has its ups and downs. But I think it's fair to say that I am more of a glass is half full kind of person. So I always try to look at the blessings of it, God's beauty, His nature. I love the earlier sunrises, and the later sunsets. And I never get tired of those. I always love looking at beautiful sunrises and sunset, no matter the season. So, and also this summer is super extra spectacular for our listeners because we are doing episodes for the summer and for September as well. It started in June. First episode is June 7th, and will be the last episode for the summer series will be the last week in September. And for that period of time, we are doing the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. Some of you may be familiar with the author by some of the movies that have been made with him. I think a biography was made with him not too long ago. Actually, I think a movie just came out a year or two ago about him. Are you familiar with that, Sherry? But I think I do remember a movie being made with. I think it was last year.
I don't think but see, I never really was one who I don't want to say paid much attention to him. That sounds wrong. I love the Chronicles of Narnia, but that was about as far as I got. I've heard so many good things about Mere Christianity and many of the other classics. I've never been a classic person, so that's one of the things that I love about our friendship is that you are helping me broaden my horizons. So.
Oh, yeah, and see, and he was, a lot of people may know him from the Chronicles of Narnia. And the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and things like that. He was the author of the original books of that. And this book that we're doing, this series, again, it started June 7th, the week of June 7th, and we'll be doing all the episodes until the end of September, is based on his book, The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis, Lewis. And again, because the book was written back in the 1940s, it is considered a part of classic literature, and fans of C.S. Lewis will probably get mad at me and say, what? Are you just calling it piece of classic literature is the best literature ever, or he's the best author of his time and things like that. So, but yeah, he's a very well-known, very well-respected Christian author, and the book that we're doing the episodes on from June into September have been on the Screwtape Letters. Again, the book was written in early 1940s, and it's 31 letters from one demon to another demon. Demon as in demons that are in hell. And Screwtape, the name of the book is the Screwtape Letters. The name of the book, the name on the book refers to Uncle Screwtape. He is a high-ranking demon in hell, and he is tutoring or mentoring his young nephew, Wormwood, who is a lower-ranking demon in hell, who has just been assigned a Christian human. And his particular Christian human is a young male. I guess he's about in his 30s. I don't think it really just says so, but as you read the letters, he kind of seems to be around that age. And he's new, very, very new to the faith. And Uncle Screwtape is mentoring young nephew Wormwood how to put his new Christian on a straight path to hell. That's basically what the whole book is about. It's about manipulating the Christian, deceiving the Christian, putting thoughts in this particular Christian's mind, and among other things, everything he could do to turn away from his newfound Christianity and, help him join them in Satan's house, basically, as it's put out in there. And so today, we are covering, in this episode, I should say, we are covering letters 8 and 9 in the Screwtape Letters. And the first letter pretty much talks about the troughs and peaks. I get it right. Troughs and peaks of life. And letter 9 talks about the pleasures. So, again, these are letters from Uncle Screwtape to his nephew Wormwood, both of whom are demons in hell. And the troughs and peaks part, I guess I am just going to interchange those words per se to today's vernacular and just say hills and valleys, because that's basically what he's talking about in letter 8. And he's really, really, really upset. Uncle Screwtape is really, 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 really upset at his nephew Wormwood, because Wormwood is all excited and he's like, hey, Uncle Screwtape, guess what? That human you assigned me, remember how he was a new Christian and, he was going through all the new routines of being a Christian? Well, guess what? I have gotten him to on the peak of just, getting ready to step away from the faith. Like, how good am I? And Uncle Screwtape, it just is like, you stupid, 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 stupid demon. He's just like, are you crazy? Like, okay, I'm using a Kara translation of it, but he's pretty much saying, you stupid, stupid, stupid demon. How are you? Like, this is not of your doing. If you have studied humans at all, you would know that hills and valleys, troughs and peaks, as it talks about in that letter, are a natural part of human life. They happen. There are times where things are low, and then there are times when humans feel low about things, and then there's a time when humans feel, very high, about things. Sometimes they feel like they're on the top of a hill, a peak, for instance, a mountain peak, or they feel really low, like they're in troughs or in a valley. He's like, and that's just part of human existence. And it's not just in regards to their spiritual life, it's in regards to their marriage, their relationships, their job, their church and everything else. He's like, you've done nothing, you little idiot demon. This is just a part, of human nature. And he's saying, however, one of the we can use especially the troughs or the valleys in a person's life. They can be very invaluable to us. And give me a second. There was something that he had wrote in letter 9 where he talks about that, and I'm just trying to see. Yeah, okay, he says, because he calls it the law of undulation, like it's just human nature. This type of stuff happens. And he's like, but we can still use them to our advantage. And we must use those deep troughs to our advantage, because he's pretty much saying our cause is never more in danger than when a human, no longer desiring, but still intending to do God's will, looks round upon a universe from which every trace of him seems to have vanished, and asks why he has been forsaken, but still obeys. And I just thought that was pretty deep for a demon, right? It's like, so he's like, we have to take advantage. This is a must. I'm glad to hear he's experiencing these troughs and these valleys, because basically we need to use them. They are invaluable to us, because we can't have him come out of this and be closer to God and still obey God, even when it looks like every bit of evidence of God has vanished from the earth. What do you think about that, Sherry?
I think that that's the mark of true maturity as a believer. I think that when I know for myself, I have grown leaps and valleys in this particular area, because I hate to admit it, but 10 years ago, we went through quite a few valleys, boom, 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 right in a row. And I remember thinking, okay, God, I just need to get to the promised land. I just need to get to the promised land. And I would fight, and I would work hard, and I would burn myself out, and I would get exhausted thinking it's okay, because once I get to the promised land, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to drink my tea, I'm going to have iced coffee, I'm going to sit in my recliner. But it was going to be good. I'm going to take a break. Life, never been better. I'm going to hit the ultimate. I'm going to hit the goal. Well, there's no goal in life except to cross the finish line when we breathe our last breath.
Right.
The mark of a mature Christian, the mark of somebody who's growing as a believer, as a Christ follower, is realizing that there are probably more valleys, because we live in a fallen world, than there are mountain peaks. And that's okay. Like, we can trust God, and we need to learn how to. There's that famous saying out there, and it's something about you don't need to learn to, it's not about learning how to dance, or it's not about learning, I don't know. Anyway, the whole point of the thing is we're not supposed to be learning how to get to the finish line, but we're supposed to learn how to dance in the rain. Like, the majority of our life is going to be spent in the rain. And we can either enjoy it and embrace it and trust God in it and see the blessings in it, or we can be miserable and we can make everybody around us miserable, and we can keep drinking that the sour lemon, or we can learn how to make the lemonade. So I think that for me, when even just yesterday, I was just, I don't know, my hormones were off balance, my stress level was high. I was on the go from 7:30 in the morning until 5:30 at night, literally without a break. And I was driving in the car from one place to the other, and I sensed my crabby attitude. And that's all it was. It was a choice. And I said to God, I said, I am so sorry. And so I just started listing my blessings. I just started praising him and listing my blessings and saying, God, thank you for the air that I breathe. Thank you that I have lungs that can take air in and out. Thank you for the family that you have given me. Thank you for the fact that I have a job. Thank you that I have a job where I can take time out and go to the doctor in the middle of the day. Thank you that I have enough money that I can reward myself with an iced coffee. Thank you that I, have the privilege of X, Y, or Z. And it just makes all the difference in the world. And so I think that we just need to work on growing that maturity in ourselves, that there's going to be valleys, there's going to be peaks, and there's going to be hills, and there's going to be mountains. And I think it makes the mountains that much better. And I think we need to realize that the valleys aren't going to last forever. Trusting God and seeing how he works through it.
Absolutely. And everything that you just shared, Sherry, is the perfect reason why we should not fear valleys, because they deepen our relationship with God. Am I right? That's what I was hearing you say, right?
Yep, absolutely.
They deepen our faith, and they're going to happen regardless. It's a part of, like, Christian or non-Christian, believer or non-believer. We're all going to have our ups and our downs, our hills and our valleys, our troughs and our peaks. They're all going to happen in various aspects of life. There's going to be times where all your relationships, familiar relationships like family members and other relationships are just soaring, and everything's on cloud nine, and everything is right as rain. And then there are going to be other times where you're like, I don't even like these people, anymore. Like, I can't believe they said that, or I can't believe they did that. Or, Lord, I can't believe this happened at my job. I love my job, but now they just overlooked me, for that promotion, or you're just completely in love with someone, and you're looking forward to getting married to that person. You have the wedding date planned, and then the wedding never happens because the person is killed, like in a car accident. We all have those troughs and, those hills and valleys, lows and highs. And despite the horror of some of those, and a lot of those things are very, very life-changing. But the thing is that even though your life or the way you live your life may change because of it, we can't let it change our faith walk. Because as the Screwtape wisely said, to the under kingdom, to Satan's kingdom, there's nothing more threatening or fearful to them than someone they've done all that to. They've thrown every valley at them that they can. They put them in the deepest valleys, and then they even turned off the lights and made it a deep and dark valley, right? And then they made it a deep, dark, and lonely valley. They took everyone else out, and you just, you seem the only person there. But there's nothing worse to Satan's kingdom than when all of that is going on, and then when you get to peek your head up out of that valley, and you look around, and it seems like God's nowhere to be found. There's nothing worse for Satan's kingdom than a person who still climbs up out of that valley and lands on the ground where it looks like God no longer exists and still obey the words of the Lord. That is very frightening to them, and it makes hell tremble because they know there's nothing that they can do with that person. Might as well give up, okay, because they threw everything at them, including the kitchen sink, and it didn't work. And that's how we have to be in our spiritual walks. And I believe that's why the book of Ephesians talk about putting on the armor, sometimes before we even get up in the morning, so it's like, because we just never know what the day may bring, But one of my favorite songs, one of the last lyrics, one of the last phrases in the song talks about, and when evening come, let me still be singing your praises. Like, no matter what happens, when the evening come, may I still be singing your praises. And I just think that's the way we need to be with the Lord. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think that pleases the Lord. No, I know that pleases the Lord. And this may sound really trivial, and I don't mean it to be trivial at all, but I like to bring reality back to the troubles that I face. And I'm not saying, okay, first off, nobody needs to compare their issues with anybody else's issues, because whatever issues you're going through are hard for you. But
Right.
in the grand scheme of things, if people could stop looking at the earthly perspective and start looking at the heavenly perspective, even if you're suffering for 50 years, which I pray you aren't, but even if you're suffering for 50 years, that is nothing compared to eternity with God. So
Absolutely,
if you can
yes.
look at it from that perspective of this is but a moment, this is but a second, a fleeting moment in my life, and I will have eternity in heaven with God. It just, for me, it makes it so much easier. It doesn't make it easy. It just makes it so much easier. And that I think when people can have that heavenly perspective, that is why they can still praise God, because they know that this is not the end. This is not even the beginning. This is just temporary.
Yes, because we have that biblical hope and biblical expectation, of mingled with that way. Because in the end, we know God's promises are all throughout the Bible, and we know that even though right now we may not see it, but that this is not the end of the story, right?
Exactly.
It is not the end of the story, and that. I saw someone share something the other day that said something along the lines like, and pretty much in regards to like hills and valleys, saying, we just need to have the perspective of saying, wow, you know what, God, I can't wait to see how you're going to get me out of this one. And just sit back waiting expectantly, and just being like, okay, all right. Because if you've been a Christian for any amount of time, there were times where you just thought things looked down and out and you'd have no idea how you were going to survive, where it was mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally, or financially. You're just like, Lord, this bill is due in 2 days. And like, I just lost my job and we have like $7 in a bank account. Like, I don't know how this is going to happen, and then all of a sudden, 5 years later, you still find yourself in a house, right? So, and it's like we've all been through those valleys where it's like God has shown up, He has shown out. Sometimes it's been immediate, sometimes it's been miraculous, and then sometimes it took a while, but it's all part of our spiritual journey. And so I just want to encourage everyone who are listening that if you're in a valley, that your story is not over yet. And it may not be easy, and you may not see any fingerprints of God anywhere in your situation or in your life, but just trust and believe in the God of your salvation and continue to let that situation draw you closer to Him, and don't listen to the enemy's lies and let it fall to the wayside. Your relationship and your faith fall to the wayside. Letter 9 talks about pleasures, and believe it or not, letter 8 about the troughs and peaks or hills and valleys coincides very well with letter 9 and pleasures, because Uncle Screwtape, head demon, is informing his nephew demon, Wormwood, about the benefits of those troughs and pleasures. And he's like, because here, he goes, when a person is in a really deep valley or in a really deep trough, we don't have to attack their faith directly to get them to walk away from God. He's like, we can introduce them to other things or help them bring to mind other things that will help them step away from God. And he, in letter 9 with pleasures, Uncle Screwtape is talking to nephew Wormwood about pleasures and more specifically sex. And he was talking about, that pleasure in its original pure form as designed by God is not what he has in mind, Screwtape has in mind, that he wants to pervert that pleasure and transform it into sin, and he says to his nephew Wormwood in a letter, he says, never forget that when we are dealing with any pleasure in its healthy and normal and satisfying form, we are, in a sense, on God's ground. He said, however, we have won many a soul through pleasure. And his idea of pleasure, again, is transforming it into sin, something that God meant for good, and turning it into you doing it in a way that is not glorifying to God at all. And then he's like, he also says, and I'm reading from one of the letters here, he's like, God cannot tempt to virtue as we do to vice. God wants them to learn to walk and must therefore take away his hand. And if only the will to walk is really there, God is pleased even with their stumbles. But do not be deceived, Wormwood. Our cause is never more in danger than when a human, no longer desiring but still intending to do God's will, and he still obeys. And so he's like, we're going to introduce these vices to him, and we're going to introduce sex and women, and we're going to transform it to every unimaginable form that we can think of. And he's like, the trough is the perfect opportunity for all sensual temptations, and especially those of sex. And he's like, we need to increase that craving for him, especially while he's in this spiritual dry valley, And he's like, it is nothing better than to get a man's soul and give him nothing in return. That is what gladdens Satan's heart. And this, because he's in this dry spell, this is the perfect opportunity for us to exploit that. In this particular letter, he's really emphasizing using sex. And he's a young man, he's unmarried, and just, releasing his tensions and stress, and everything else in an ungodly way. And using that. And that by this person being in a very dry valley, like this is the perfect opportunity. Because, when you're down and out, you're looking for anything, something to give your pleasure, because you're mentally drained, you're physically tired, you're emotionally worn, and probably financially strained. And what more than to seek some type of vice, some type of pleasure that costs you nothing? There is no mental commitment. There is no legal commitment. There is no emotional commitment. It's just pleasure, pure and simple, but not godly and not edifying. And he's using sex as an example for that, and is suggesting that Nephew Wormwood use sex to tempt him. What are your thoughts on that, Sherry?
Well, again, I think that goes into that slippery slope, and I don't think it has to be just sex. I look at it in my own life, and I think about it with my relationship with food. Like, if I am stressed out, and if I'm in the early stages of not trusting God, not knowing how to trust God, learning how to trust God, you hit the panic button and you're like, I just need a quick fix right now. I need something to make me feel good right now. I don't want to do the work of actually trusting. I don't want to do the work of actually saying, okay, God, I know you can get me out of this. That means that I need to spend time with you in prayer. That means that I need to spend time praising and worshiping you, reminding you that you've got this. That takes work. When people don't want to work, like you said, they're mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted, and that's exactly where Satan wants us to be.
Yes.
And so it doesn't have to be a sex thing. It can be anything. It can be social media. It can be
any type of vice, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any type of vice. It can be reading, drinking, gambling, scrolling, anything. And so that's where you need to have a little bit of maturity. That's where we need to step back and say, okay, I can do this, but where's it going to get me? Is it going to get me to my goal? Is it going to help me? Is it going to relieve what I want relieved? And am I going to have peace? Am I going to have hope? Am I going to have joy? Or am I going to just go down that downward spiral and just feel
And
worse.
generally, you're just going to have guilt afterwards.
Yeah.
So the enemy draws you nearer and nearer and closer to his side of things, and he gets in extra little grips and tendrils, right? Because now on everything else, if you're feeling mentally worn and spiritually worn out and tired, now he has you feeling guilty.
Exactly.
So, and they're just laughing like, wow, you just opened the door for me. You really did that. Now you just opened the door for me to, add on something else. And we have to be careful there, because as we talked about, hills and valleys could also be, like, for instance, in a marriage. And there could be times where your marriage is on a high. You're like, oh my goodness, things have never been better, and everything else. But then there's also those times where things are down in a valley and they're low. And it is so tempting for someone in that relationship to look outside of that relationship or outside of their spouse for pleasure. For whatever reason, they may feel like their spouse is not giving it to them as much or as often as they like or how they like, or they may have lost interest in that spouse because they've gained weight, they've copped a nasty attitude, or they're just not fun to hang around or be around anymore. And then all of a sudden they see someone else and they're like, oh, well, she's awfully pretty. Oh, you know what? She makes me laugh every time I am around her. She's so much fun to be around. I feel so much lighter when I'm around her. Oh, you know what? She's awfully flirty too. Oh, did she wear that short skirt just for me? You start getting into that very, very fine line. And unfortunately, a lot of people cross over that line. They cross over that line. And they're like, yes, was it pleasurable? Were you able to forget all of your marital woes, maybe for a night? Possibly. But then you wake up that next morning and you're like, oh my word, what have I done? What have I done? And it's already been, you've already committed the act. And there's little demonic minions out there all the time, like, oh, she wore that skirt just for you. Oh, why don't you whisper in her ear and see how she reacts? Or, why don't you lay your hand on his shoulder? And, because he's listening to you, and your husband never listens to you. All of that are slippery slopes that the enemy uses to get you into something a lot darker and a lot deeper than you could have ever imagined. And it may not even be you looking at someone else or wanting or desiring or fantasizing about having sex with someone that you work with or someone in your neighborhood or, an old friend or an old flame from the past. It could be pornography. It could be pornography. It's all the same. It's all a spirit of lust. And when an enemy you have joined the enemy and letting him take your hand and take you down that path, it is a very, very, very slippery slope. Yes, you temporarily may forget your marital woes or whatever woes you may be facing, financial or other type of issues going on, but it leaves you in a much darker spot. Do you agree, Sherry?
Absolutely. And I want to leave everyone with this one thought. It doesn't matter how far down the slope you've fallen or slid. God is never too far away. You do not have to clean yourself up in order to come back to him. He wants you to come to him with all of the mess and the grime and the grit that you have, because it's his pleasure to clean us up. We're responsible for the choice to say, God, help. And we're responsible for the doing what he tells us to do. But he will give us that motivation, and he will help us every single step of the way. So don't think that you're too far gone. Nobody is too far gone. If you have breath in your lungs, you are not too far gone. I want to encourage people with that. Just last night, I was going to bed, and I wasn't dealing with pornography. I wasn't dealing with food issues. I wasn't dealing with gambling or anything huge at all. But I was feeling guilty, and I can't even really honestly, I don't remember what it was that I had done wrong and that I knew that I had sinned. But I asked God for forgiveness as I was going to bed last night. And I knew I'm the type of person that in the past I would ask God for forgiveness, but I couldn't forgive myself. And it didn't matter if it was something huge or if it was something little. I couldn't forgive myself for disappointing him. And I am learning that all I need to do is say I'm sorry with a true heartfelt heart. And God forgives it from the east as from the west. And I, for the first time last night, felt so free after asking for forgiveness. I slept so well last night because I honest to goodnessly felt him forgive me. I didn't think about it again. And like I said, this morning, it was less than 12 hours ago. I truly don't remember what I did that I needed forgiveness for. But that, I think, is the other key. Satan is really good at putting us down that slippery slope. But you know what? When we stay on top of it, when we choose to ask forgiveness for the little things, when God brings to mind the little ways that we're starting to slide and we ask for forgiveness and write it right away, it makes such a difference. Just like when you have, like I just minimized and cleaned my kitchen. And I am doing everything I can to keep it that way, which means 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day to keep it clean, to keep the clutter away. And it is so much easier. And I have such a great, peaceful feeling about it because it's staying clean and it's not getting cluttered again. If we do that with our spiritual life, every time we see a little thing that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing, and we ask for forgiveness and write it right away, it is so much easier than waiting until we're sitting in the pig pen and we've drifted so far away from God that we hardly hear his voice anymore. It's just so much better to do it a little at a time and to stay consistent with it than to wait until we are in this huge, big mess. And then we just have to ask God to clean up a whole lot. We have to get a dumpster in order to clean up the clutter instead of a small garbage can, because that's all that there is. I have really enjoyed the topics for today. And next week, the last week of July, I can hardly believe it, we're going to talk about bad friends and laughter. And I think I'm going to love this one even more. Head over to Kara's website, KARARHUNT.com, and check out all of the latest and greatest over there. Head over to my website, Sherry Swalwell, CherySwalwell.com. And if you're interested in figuring out a way to stay on top of your relationship with God, to keep growing it deeper, in 10 minutes a day, it doesn't take that long. It's just 10 minutes a day in your inbox. Head on over to my website and you can check out the Jesus to Me Everyday membership. $10 a month, $9.99. And it will change your life. I can guarantee you, not because of me, but because of God. I am really, really enjoying these discussions much more than I thought I would, because C.S. Lewis has always intimidated me, which I don't know why, because he's so fascinating. And he just speaks relevantly, even though he wrote it back in the 40s, it is relevant today. And we're already in 2023, almost 2024. So we're talking 80 years ago, Kara, almost a whole century. And yet his writings are still relevant. I pray that my writings, that what God has given me, will still be relevant 100 years from now. That only by the grace of God. I am not comparing myself to C.S. Lewis. I'm just saying I would love to have that blessing as well. So thank you for listening. We will talk to you next week, and have a great rest of your week and great summer.